Welcome back, folks. We're on episode 13 of Outside the Lab, our podcast series brought to you by the Athletes Lab Performance Center and powered by Under Armour. Really happy to, as we've been doing on Wednesday night, stay inside the organization and talk to one of our own head coaches tonight, Coach Shawn Yambor from our 11U team. Coach has a wide range of experiences from being down in Florida to coming up to the Unifor. Played in college, actually helped coach in college for a little bit, been with the Highway Patrol, owns his own business, all kinds of things that he's bringing here, to the table tonight as we go through a discussion. We got a good one lined up for you. Happy to introduce to you Coach Shawn Yambor. Coach, welcome to the call.
Hey, thank you, Cam. My pleasure. Glad to be on. And as Coach Duckworth said earlier in the pod series, it's such an honor to be on here with all these great coaches, college coaches, and other coaches that are involved. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm going to hop right into it. I mentioned a few things there, but talk through your background here a little bit so folks understand where you're coming from and your perspective going into this talk.
Sure. Hey, so I grew up in South Florida. I grew up in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area, lived down there for 12 years initially, and ended up moving to Memphis, Tennessee, and my dad's job took him up there, and had 4 years over there. I actually got introduced to the travel world over there. I played for an organization called the Memphis Travelers, which are still up and going. I think they're 50, 60 years strong now. We moved back to Florida because we missed it so much. Down there for 4 years again through most of high school, and then my senior year, Dad got relocated and actually found a job up here in Hickory, North Carolina, with MDI. And so I transferred in my senior year to Fred T. Ford and played over there under Dwayne Finger. I think a lot of people know Coach Finger around here. I had played mostly third base for him, and I didn't really get to pitch that much. And that's the irony of this. I didn't get recruited real heavily, and I actually ended up sitting out a year after high school. But I knew I wanted to play, and I kept that dream alive. And heard Wilkes Community College was a second-year team and was looking for players, and had the opportunity to go up there and play for Coach Kerry Nichols a couple years. First year was rough because I still was playing like I was playing in high school. I'd predominantly pitched, and I didn't know how to pitch. And I figured it out. I finally figured it out between my freshman and sophomore year. And sophomore year had a pretty good year. Was an All-American, academic All-American, All-Region 10. Got recruited by some D1 mid-majors and a lot of D2s, and eventually signed with Morris Hill for the ability to kind of step right in and play. And got up there, and they moved me out of rotation actually to a closer role, and did that, and ended up getting hurt and with some nerve issues in my arm, and then ended up kind of making a decision that it was time for me to step away from the game, at least playing. And went home and got into family business a little bit, and also was kind of doing the volunteer assistant thing over at Wilkes Community College under Coach Nichols. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Helped with recruiting and the program, whatever we needed to do over there, and just enjoyed. Knew I wanted to be a coach, and I was having a tough time figuring out how I was going to do that. So eventually entered the workforce and got married and had kids, and went to Highway Patrol and joined those guys, and that was kind of my dream job growing up. And I was involved with them, and week 16 in the school, my dad comes down with cancer and asked me to come back home and run the business. And tough, probably the toughest decision of my life, walking away from something I really like to do, and go back home and run the business. So went back home, had kids, and we got 3 great kids from mine, hers, and ours. Chase, our youngest, he is 11 now. Chase started playing ball in a local rec league here in Caldwell County at North Catawba Optimists when he was 5. Started coaching with that a little bit, and found out I was fairly decent at it. Was over there for 3 years, and we were actually talking about this the other night. of the 11 I had that 3 years, I think 9 of them are actually still in travel ball right now. A lot of them in 12U and 13U. So very, very proud of that, and those guys, what they've accomplished, and hopefully they'll continue success. But um, then when Chase was 7, we went and worked out at a facility over in Burke County, the field house, and got approached by this big guy, imposing figure, Todd Jenkins. And he asked, "Hey, is your son playing any travel ball anywhere?" And I was like, "No, we've really been thinking about it, but we didn't know where to go." And he's like, "Hey, I got the guy for you." And he introduced me to Coach Duckworth, and from there it was a really, really fun time with Coach Duckworth. He and I started that 9U team, and man, that was fun, absolutely fun. I was able to learn the ropes and get Chase introduced to travel ball as a older 7-year-old and young 8-year-old. He ended up turning 8 during that season, and we had a good time. I think Coach Duckworth and I worked really, really well together. I heard him on the podcast, and he was absolutely 100% right. There was things that he definitely did better than I would, and to this day, he probably still does. He likes to deal with the parents and the managing side of it, where I'm the X and O's coaching, get out there and get after it. And we did real well. I mean, it wasn't a success in the wins and losses, but we saw a lot of development, and we knew that we were on the right path. And of course, during that process is where we come across, Brian and Todd were telling me about Grant, our owner, and I was kind of uncertain. I wasn't really sure how this was going to go, and got to go out to lunch one day, and I remember it like it was yesterday. We were sitting down, and Grant was telling me his vision and the guys' the vision. And the thing he said to me that kind of resonated with me was, "Guys, I'm tired of people in this area getting screwed in travel ball. The high prices everybody's charging, and the limited amount of instruction they're getting." And it was very apparent to me that this is where I wanted to be, because he valued not just a number of kids. It was the quality of instruction. And from then I was sold on Grant. Grant has been fantastic. The whole Rembert family has been fantastic. And things grew. And as we got older that 9U season, those guys were moving up to 10s, and I made a decision. I didn't think Chase was quite ready for that. I didn't want to kill his confidence. And I thought it also would serve the organization well if I stayed behind and start our next 9U team. And that was an experience getting it going, but it was fun. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I'm glad to be here, and couldn't thank Grant and Duckworth and Todd Jenkins for the opportunity.
Yeah, so as I told you folks, and you can hear vast background there, different parts of the country, different experiences, playing, coaching, been in the college mix, both as a player and on the coaching side there for a little bit. I mean, just a ton of life experience, of coaching experience, baseball background that Coach brings to the table with all of our kids, but especially our 11U group. And you touched on a couple of things there, kind of how you got started. I remember Brian saying the same thing, as I feel like Todd has connected 80% of the people in the organization in some form or fashion. So what a good guy. But so let's talk about this. So you talked about how you and Coach Duckworth kind of started together. Your group was kind of younger and realized at some point we're going to have to split. We're going to have to make 2 teams, with the difference in age there. So kind of talk us through, not necessarily how all that happened, but kind of talk us how your roster kind of morphed into what it is today in May of 2020. You got some of those guys who were there, added some fantastic pieces, and kind of how, you are where you are today with your roster. Talk us through that.
Sure. So it's kind of unique. When we started, we were actually late to the party. We didn't have tryouts. We actually didn't have a fall season for my 9U team when we started. So we were late, and tryouts were a little rough. And we finally got enough in the numbers, and we were predominantly a Burke County team. We had I think 7 or 8 kids from Burke County. We had, I think, 1 or no, we had two from Catawba and I think one from Caldwell. And I didn't know what to expect, man. First year 9U team, and I remember thinking when we started that spring, I was nervous, probably more nervous than any other game I've played in. Coach, I don't know what it does. It just gives you a lot more butterflies. I'm sure you could relate.
Oh yeah.
Um, we struggled out the gate. We really did. First year 9U team, we struggled, and it was nip and tuck. We were there in some games. We just didn't know how to finish yet. And I remember after that third tournament, we had kind of a heart to heart. We got what I call 0-2 and barbecued. You lose two and go to the house. And
Yep.
we had a heart to heart. And I told him, I said, hey, come Monday, it's on. We got to get it. We got to get together quickly. And after that, we really kind of started coming together. And the neat thing about this was the year prior with Duckworth's team, I was studying the younger groups and I was watching them. And I came across the team that actually I got a really good relationship with now. They're no longer in existence, but they were the top dog in our division. They were number one in the state, number one in the nation, the Haywood Havoc group. And I watched them, and I liked how they played. They were really good on defense, great pitching, base running was excellent, and they were well coached. And I knew that I wanted to be like those guys. So we would look for them in tournaments, and we would challenge them, and they would get the best of us. But it was close games. And the really cool thing about that was that group, that 9U group, that first year, we ended up going to the World Series. We got hot at the right time, and we run off, I think, 10 or 12 wins and a couple tournaments, and we went into World Series pretty hot. We got down there, and I think we went 2-0 Thursday, 2-0 Friday. We were 4-0 going into championship play, and we play a Sunday morning game against the eventual champions that knocked us off. They thumped us pretty good. We just weren't woke up yet. But we were in a loser bracket, and here comes Haywood Havoc, number one team in the nation, number one team in the state. And I told the boys, I said, hey, you guys, your back's against the wall. It's time to go. And that was the day that team grew up, and this group grew up. They ended up knocking off Haywood Havoc and beating them, getting us into the championship against the team that beat us in the first game. We ended up beating them and then playing the what-if game. And we eventually lost in that. We just ran out of pitching. And fourth game in 95-plus degree weather, the kids wilted a little bit. But I was super proud of them. We kept the momentum. I think we won 28 games that year just in the spring, which was amazing to me, that group coming along. So we went into 10U pretty hot. We made a name for ourselves. We picked up some kids. I think we lost 4 or 5, and we picked up 4 or 5, and we morphed. We got a couple more kids from Caldwell County. We picked up a couple kids from, I think, McDowell County that year. And we had a really good, strong year overall. That total year, I think we ended up winning 48, 49 games, something like that between the two. Got in the World Series, got hot again, and ended up losing in the championship game again. Our boys, I think, have matured and developed, and we talk a lot about that as a group. You know, what is our culture? what's our goals? And I think there's a multifaceted process of that, and I begin pretty much every year the same way with each group. Every year when we reset, when we get the new year, I use the Marine Corps mentality. I break them down and then I build them back up. So we usually kind of have a rough start because we're kind of trying to find our way, and I really push the kids. I kind of try to find out who's the dog, and who can be trusted in situations, and then once we get to that point where we can develop and get guys playing quicker and faster, and we talk a lot about baseball IQ, knowledge wise, we start clicking, and it's always awesome to see because we usually have a good run there for a while. And again, the really cool thing about all these teams is each year we've kind of stepped up the talent level. We started out in pretty much low A, double A stuff, and then we've worked our way up into triple A. And this past year, 11U, We had a few new kids we picked up. The Alexander kids have been tremendous pickups, tremendous workers. Um, they've really kind of rounded out this team as far as from a talent perspective and kind of give an edge. We had a good start to this year. In the fall, I think we won around 19 games or so. But the thing I was most proud of is these guys went out and they beat some major teams. I think in the last 6 months, we actually got a winning record against majors,
Wow.
which is the next level for us. So
Yep.
very, very proud of this group. You know, it's based the current group. We have 2 out of Alexander, 1 out of Catawba, 3 out of Caldwell, and I think 5 out of Burke now. But so that's kind of how the group's morphed over the years. We still have pretty much the core together, but we've added some really, really nice pieces out of Caldwell and Alexander for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. You guys have had some huge pickups, and we'll talk about how all those different pieces. There's 4 counties you talk about they're represented. We'll talk about how all that fits together here in a little bit later on down the show. Let's go back to something you said. Early on, and I think this happens to all coaches. You get out there and you're a nervous wreck, like you said. Maybe even more so than when you're playing. And I don't know, but with your experience, for me, I think a lot of that is there's so much that as a coach you feel like is out of your control. When I'm on the mound or I'm at the plate, I'm in full control of what's going on at that moment. When I'm 90 feet away in the third base coach's box, sometimes you feel helpless there. But kind of how you bridge that gap is in your preparation. The way that you gain control back is in the way that you prepare. And I think you guys do a tremendous job of that. If you watch your teams, they're organized, they're disciplined, they're focused, they're well prepared. And there's no secret that kind of works its way down from the top and starts with you and your coaching staff. So talk about how, whether it was, watching the group from Haywood, like you're saying, or your experiences in college or the highway patrol, whatever, kind of how all this has morphed itself into your coaching style, your philosophy, and kind of how you get that going through your teams.
Yeah, so absolutely, and I'd be remiss not to mention I had a really, really good mentor contact growing up. My grandfather actually ran track, and my grandmother ran track at Florida State. And my grandfather's roommate was actually Ron Frazier, who is like the wizard of college baseball, coached the United States Olympic team, University of Miami coach for years. Coach Frazier gave me a lot of knowledge. He actually taught me how to throw my slider. But he told me a long time ago, Shawn. He said, you got to be around good people. And I, one thing I've listened to our podcast, that is something that's come up several times with everybody. You got to have good people. And I think you also have to have the committed people from the parents. The parents got to buy into what you're selling. They got to understand what's going on. But, what we look for, one of the things I'm proud about in my team is we've got a high character bunch of kids. I think this past school year up till the coronavirus, when we talk daily when they're at practice, how's your grades? How's everything going on? We've kind of established a mentor program where I've told them, hey, if you don't feel comfortable talking with your parents or whoever, you can always pull me aside and say, hey, I got something going on, or hey, I need to miss practice, or whatever, to work on school or whatever. But we got high character kids and parents. All those kids either are straight A honor roll or AB honor roll. So we're very, very proud of that as a group. The thing that you talk about where my coaching philosophy came from is definitely discipline. I'll be the first to tell you I'm not for everybody. I've actually lost people over the last 2 years, probably because of my personality. I'm going to get after you. I am going to get after you if you make the same mistake over and over again. I'm not going to, we talk all the time as a group. I'm not going to get after you make a mistake. If you make a mistake, okay, on to the next pitch, next play, next at bat, next game. But if we're making the same mistake over and over and over, I'm going to kind of get on you. And I feel like at this age, it's important to enforce that because they're on the precipice of becoming young men. And, a lot of these kids are going to middle school next year. And my number one job, and it's under my goals, is my number one job is to prepare you for the next level. All right. Next level for us is middle school. I love what we said on the podcast earlier was, we don't want kids to go into college to contribute. We want them to play early. And I feel the same mentality with me. I want my sixth graders, I want them to step in and be able to be a part of the program and an important part of the program and for years to come. And I think with that, if we establish that, we become part of their DNA and they be able to trust us at the school levels, and we would create a pipeline. Caldwell County, I think, does such a great job of creating a pipeline of talent, and Alexander County, now you think about it. They do such a great job of creating a pipeline from the rec leagues to travels to the middle schools to the high schools, and some of them guys are getting drafted and D1 prospects. I mean, from little Alexander County, smallest county in the state, they're turning over talent, and Caldwell is just right there with them. So that's what I want that's one of my goals as a coach. I want to grow baseball in this area, and I want the talent to be second to none. So my coaching philosophy, I'm hard on you, but I'll be the first one. If you hit a home run, I'm going to be the first guy there to hug you and tell you, good job. Or you make a great play, I'm going to be the first one to give you a high five and tell you I love you, man. I've got our players' backs no matter what. And we try to make sure they understand that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that was a perfect segue. One of the next things I was going to talk about is, we're on the topic of preparation, and we're constantly talking about preparing our guys for whatever that next step is. If it's our showcase guys, it's an opportunity to play in college. If it's a middle school guy, it's a chance to go to high school and contribute right away, JV, varsity, wherever it is. For your guys, that next step is middle school. For folks listening who don't know, Coach has got two guys on the roster who are in sixth grade and are going to middle school right now. Both of them went to Doubts back early in February of this year, made their team, contributed. I know both Brady and Caden were both doing really, really well for their teams. And I think you hit on the question was going to be, how do you prepare your guys for that? And I think you hit on that perfectly. But credit to you guys, whatever that next step is. You're doing a fantastic job of preparing them for that in the way that they're, being brought up in your team. So kudos to you guys for that. Anything else you want to add on preparation for middle school before we move on?
I'll just say this to those two guys. One of the biggest honors as a coach that I received this year wasn't any award or any trophy or any kind of recognition from anything. It was actually those two kids coming to me and thanking me individually and say, "Hey, Coach, thank you so much for preparing me for middle school. That was easy." And that man, that was awesome. And I get kind of chilled up when I hear that, and it makes it worthwhile. And I love it, man. It's just I'm so proud of those two kids, and I can't wait to the rest of our group to experience the same thing.
Yep, that's awesome. That's fantastic stuff, and certainly a testament to what you and your staff are doing to help prepare those guys. So let's talk about this now. We had said, you've brought together guys from 4 different counties. We're at Alexander, Catawba, Burke, and Caldwell. And one thing about your group is you guys really have that chemistry. You guys are tight, and that's not by accident. Those bonds and those relationships, they don't just happen, out of nowhere. There's a conscious effort to make that happen. Which obviously, as we know, translates onto the field and into play. And so talk about some of the things that you guys do intentionally as a staff and as a group to bond everybody together.
So as far as that, I think it's a multifaceted approach. I've been on teams over the years and read enough books and watched enough documentaries to kind of get the psyche. One of my favorite courses in college was psychology, and I took several courses in that, and just trying to relate to the player and figure out what makes them tick. But I think number one, you got to have leadership. You got to have an alpha at top, and we're fortunate, as an organization, we got that. We've got Grant, Aaron, and you up top and helping us all. At the team level, of course, we got myself and our other 2 coaches, Kyle Pelfrey and Chad Michaels. And so I think it's important we provide leadership for them. I relate this to everyday life. I think I tell my people at work all the time, I think 90% of your workforce wants to help you, but they just want to be known what to do. So it's important we communicate to them. Number two is communication. We got to be able to communicate. So I try to have full transparency throughout our team to make sure, everybody's in tune with what's going on, what our directives are, what our plans are. If we're going out of town, where are we going to stay? Why are we going to stay? Let's go out to dinner on this night as a team. We try to do a lot of team bonding stuff. So I think it's definitely number two. You got to have good communication. Number three, I think you have to establish goals early and share your vision with the team. Just like Grant shared his with us as coaches. My number one thing with our goals, number one is always going to be development at this young age. That's over everything. And I kind of think all this kind of works together. Number one, if you have development, number two goal for us is we're going to get you ready for the next level. Bar none, hands down, we're going to do everything in our power to make you an asset at the next level. That might mean as a sixth grader, on my team, you might be a starting shortstop, but when you're fighting guys 2 years older than you, there might be a more developed shortstop. So you might have to learn how to play the outfield. So again, we're trying to train you for all facets to really take on the next level. I think the next thing is I really want the guys to compete. I want you to go out and I want you to compete. And that's what, in my opinion, that's what makes this team really so good. Is we got a lot of kids that hate to lose. They are a bunch of sore losers, to say the least. And that was one of the reasons we joined the basketball league this winter. We were playing in a middle school basketball league as fifth graders, pretty much. And I wanted them to feel what it felt like to lose. Little did I know these guys were going to pull out a 500 record, and they found some way to win. So I was proud of them for that. And I'll tell you, I didn't have a clue about basketball. A baseball coach out there ain't got a clue. But lastly, I think winning's important. I think if you do all the things we talked about, the wins will come. And if you develop and you communicate and you get them ready for the next level and you go out there and compete every day, you're gonna win. We got to practice what we preach. We go out there and we got to practice things that we got to get better on. My guys know this saying, and I think I've heard it down at the facility a couple times. We have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. When you're out there practicing on your own, you have to be doing things on your own that doesn't feel good. But the reps will train you, and you'll get better at it. Accountability is another thing. We have to hold our people accountable. One of this wasn't a fun time for me as a coach. I had a kid miss a fly ball in the infield one game, and I took him out in the middle of the inning, and it wasn't fun. I didn't enjoy doing it, but the principle of it was we had worked on all that week about communication and talking, and I did it to make a point, and the point was taken because that never happened again. And I think if we do little stuff like that, it teaches a lesson. It's a life lesson. If you mess up at work, you get fired. Or you get written up. So I want those boys to be held accountable for their actions. I think they need to be praised for their good stuff. They need to understand there's right and wrong. So that's important. But lastly, with our group, I think the thing that's important with me is you always want them to have fun. You want them to have fun and want more when they leave there. So usually when we have good practices, we have a good fluid practice. Everybody hustles and contributes. Usually we end up a practice with a fun game, whether it be the base running game, or we have baseball, tennis, or some kind of game that they enjoy. They get to pick and they get to captain up and all that stuff. And so that's the main things, the elements that from my perspective, that for team chemistry and bonding and all that, that's where I come from.
Man, that's awesome stuff there. There's the blueprint for folks listening, and so many good things there that came out of that segment. And I tell you one other thing that I think really, and this certainly applies to your team, but across the board with teams, one thing that really forges relationships and bonds and growing together is the amount of work that you put in together, the amount of investment that you've got into this thing. I watched everybody's watching the Michael Jordan series right now on Sunday nights, and I go back to after he had kind of had enough of the Pistons pushing him around, and says, "Dude, we got to get it in the weight room," and kind of what that did for that group. And you see it all the time, whether it's coaching football here at the high school and guys in the weight room, and that sweat equity, building something together, working together. What that really does to forge bonds and relationships and trust and all kind of things. So, talk about the culture of work within your team and how that plays into what we're talking about, because there's not many teams out there who are going to outwork your group. I can guarantee that.
Yeah, so usually for Christmas each year, I always get the boys. We have a Christmas party, and I usually get them a practice shirt, and I usually pick our saying for the year or something like that, and it's usually something motivational or inspirational in there, and that's been a common theme. Don't let anybody outwork you. One thing I'll say about this group, our group works. I think over this break. It's been real easy for them boys to shut down and play PlayStation or Xbox or, just disconnect from baseball altogether. We're fortunate to be in a great organization that has strength and conditioning people like Ryan Gant and Audrey Harrison. And for them to run the online workouts 2 days a week, I know that my group has had 100% attendance a couple times. Most of the time they're there. A lot of times if one of them or two of them is not there, they're in lessons with you or somebody else. So I hats off to the parents. Like I said in the beginning, you got to have parents that are committed and dialed into the process. But, I think it's important that as parents and as coaches that we don't force feed them into that. You got to want them to do that to get better. And one thing I've done with our group is I try to talk about the future a little bit. I ask them, hey, who here wants to play high school baseball? And about every kid raises their hand. And then who wants to play college baseball? And who tell me where you want to play. We've done an exercise this winter. I had them write down 3 D1s that they would want to go play at, 3 D2s, 3 D3s, 3 NAIAs, 3 JUCOs. And the whole purpose is I was trying to expand the horizons because everybody wants to go play at Clemson and Florida State and Duke. But the reality of that is, one out of the group might go to D1. So they need to understand that. I hope all of them go to D1. But the reality of it is the numbers game that there's only going to be a select few. And then the rest will be D2, D3. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know me and you share a lot of information a lot of time. I love the stat that came out from the World Series that who was in the World Series. There was so many percent of D1 guys and D2 and D3 and NAIA. It was a great stat. And
Yep.
It shows you the diversity that you can be a big fish in a little pond. You don't have to be the little or the big fish in the big pond, we try to talk to them about that and kind of I see that excites them a little bit because they have dreams and they want to go capture those dreams. So, but as far as work, we talk a lot to the group about it's very hard to accomplish what we want to accomplish in 2 hours or 2.5 hours of practice twice a week or 3 times a week. It's expected from me as a coach and from your teammates, and this is where the accountability thing comes in, that you're working on your own at home. Because you got to look at the guy next to you and make sure that he's pulling his weight. So when we get out on that field and we're playing these majors, we play quick, we play fast, we play strong. So I'm so proud of our group working together, especially with the Ryan Gant stuff. That stuff's not easy, folks.
Yeah.
I think anybody will tell you that that's been through it. But the really, really cool thing about this is I usually test our kids. When I say test our kids, I hold them. I test them in like a 40-yard at this age group because they're not running in the 60s quite yet. We test them in push-ups in 30 seconds. We test them in sit-ups. We test them in outfield velo, infield velo, off the bat velo hitting, off the mound velo. The really cool thing, I got some really good baselines for like the last 18 months for those guys and their growth. I was testing some of these guys. I've been working with 3 or 4 of them at the ball field at a time right now, and I put some testing out there. I don't know. We got 4 or 5 weeks in with Coach Gant, and I seen jumps in everybody's velo.
Wow.
And the other thing was, they were hitting the snot out of the ball, out of the ballpark before. We had a couple that were hitting the ball out of the ballpark pretty regular at practice, and I think we had 6 at practice at one day. All 6 hit it out, which is impressive. And kudos to Coach Gant, Coach Beard, yourself with the hitting lessons, and those guys. I can't say enough about our guys. They are very involved with the program, not just my program, but the instructors down there at the A-Lab Performance Center. And it's nothing to see those guys there twice a week, 3 times a week, and getting a lesson or something in. So thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I tell folks all the time, I say, come by. Chances are you're going to see Gunnar Johnson hanging around. That dude's always there. And that goes for so many others, and on your team and beyond. So, one thing we've talked about is winning the break. And I think your guys have done that, whether it's, team meetings that you guys are doing virtually to talk about the mental side of the game, or workouts with Ryan like you're talking about, or working on their own, or coming in the facility. I mean, I think we'll be hard pressed to find a team that's more ready to go whenever we get out of this thing than yours. And again, like you said, kudos to your guys and your parents. They've really done a fantastic job, and so have you. So let's turn here one time. Let's talk about this now. One thing that you and I, we do a lot is we share resources, whether it's on Twitter or website. Hey, check this video, and we do that throughout the whole organization. But and there's such a culture of sharing and learning and growth right now during this time. It's been awesome because you're hearing from guys who normally they're on the road or they're playing 5-6 times a week right now, and there's no way they would have time to sit down and do a podcast or a Zoom call or share resources, whatever it may be. So talk through how we've heard how your kids have won the break. Talk about what you've done to kind of win the break and stay sharp, because you do a great job of that.
Thank you. Well, the first thing we wanted to establish, and this goes back to the team chemistry and bonding thing. My biggest fear during this process of the stay-at-home order was the boys just not seeing each other.
Yeah.
And so I made a decision early on that Mondays at 7, we're going to meet as a group, and we're going to see each other, and we're going to ask questions. We're going to go over our first and third plays. We're going to go over situational stuff. And give them a few times to talk and pick on each other. And, they all got nicknames, and they all kind of play Fortnite and whatever else together. So it's a pretty tight-knit group anyways. So that's been good for me for keeping that side of it, those guys in each other's ears, so to speak. Personally, one of the biggest things that I actually done this last year with Coach Duckworth, is I became a member of the ABCA, the American Baseball Coach Association. And what a wealth of knowledge, man, from good dudes that know the game. And the 2 events I've been to, I've met some great college coaches that surprisingly, they are so easy to talk to and willing to help you. And I know this year we got the opportunity to go up to UNCG as a group and at the ABCA here in North Carolina, and met Coach Starbuck, who's been a phenomenal resource for our facility. Great hitting mind. And we got to meet a bunch of other guys too. And a lot of these guys are really, really good with their contact information. So if you got something you want to run by somebody, hey, what do you think about this or that? And I've done that a couple times with the guys that I've met over the last 2 years. And I've got a great response. And, I think one of the other things that really kind of gets me off on another tangent here, one of the reasons I'm here at A-Lab is because of the relationships that our guys are going to have or do have and going to have down the road. I've dabbled into fast pitch. I was in the travel circuit there for a little bit, coaching my daughter. And I learned a lot from a bunch of college guys there. Brian Pack at USC Upstate was actually a lot of his stuff that he give me down at Upstate for fast pitch softball I use in baseball. His defenses are always top 5 in the nation. So a lot of his drills is stuff that I use. But the thing that I learned, this is a tight knit community that really, with coaches, that they don't mind sharing stories and what worked for you, what didn't work. And I've been very fortunate to be able to have some of them guys to bounce some stuff off of. But on the other side of that, Cam, I think ABCA has been really good. There's a ton of follows on Twitter and Facebook that I follow. Coach Sheediger, Travel Ball Talk is a good podcast that I follow. Of course, our stuff. Coach Montegero, he's another great one to listen to, and his resources are good. But I think the other thing that I would recommend there is people got to be really careful who they listen to, because there is some really bad information out there, and we call them YouTube. Grant and I joke all the time about YouTube coaches, and there's a lot of them out there. They go out there and they see a drill on YouTube and they're like, "Oh, this is really cool. Let's get this into practice," and so they want to disrupt your practice and do this drill. Okay, we do the drill, but why are you doing it? You have no idea why you're doing it. You don't know how to explain it properly. You don't know how, and that's the problem with some of the stuff that's out there. But these guys I mentioned previously are fantastic follows. And I would dare to say, if you picked up the phone, I know Sheedinger, you could pick up the phone and call that guy or email that guy. And as big as he is right now, he will answer you back. I mean, just a terrific dude. But, as far as me, really kind of listening to those guys, listening to the right resources. And look, I'd be remiss not to mention, I am very lucky that I do not live close to that facility, or I would be divorced. Because I love listening to you talk. I love listening to Aaron talk. We're talking pitching. Grant, hearing him talk. I learn a ton from you guys, and it's refreshing. And sometimes, I forgot some of the knowledge that you guys got, and you guys, oh yeah, I remember that now, and I can go back and apply it to our group. So. That's how I'm beating the break, so to speak. So
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. You talk about connections, man. And you're right. There's so many, and I've witnessed this, and I've told people in the past, 3 or 4 weeks since we've been doing this is how easy to talk to and how willing to share these guys are. And you're talking about some big time guys who have been on here, but talk just like you and I are talking. And I'm with you. I feel like I could pick the phone up right now and call any one of them that have been on our show, or that we've met, throughout this, and they would answer anything that I had for them, and would help me any way that I could. And that's what's awesome to see. And you're talking about that tight knit baseball community. It's said over and over, but it's so true. And you're right about the ABCA, and our local one, our state one, the North Carolina Baseball Coaches Association, doing some great stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's a ton of resources. And I can tell people all the time, man, we're in 2020. There's more information out there. There's more ways to connect than there ever has, been at any time before this in history. So the more we can take advantage, the better off we can be. Let's talk about, we're talking about kind of growth and people helping each other. Let's take it down this route. Let's talk about mentorship within the organization. And one thing we say all the time, at least I say, is that one of the cool things about being in the facility is, you're going to have guys from 8 years old all the way up to college guys in there working out, and pro guys sometimes. And, whether I tell our kids all the time, whether you want it or not, whether you realize it or not, those young dudes are watching you, just like you're watching, Bryce Stober or whoever who's over here working out on their own. These guys are watching you, and your guys are at the age where they're kind of caught in the middle of that, on one side of things. Like I was telling you earlier, hitting last night, and there's Gunner hitting with Quinn and Boone. You got 15-year-olds in there, big-time hitters hitting with an 11-year-old. They're coaching him up. They're talking to him, very conversational with him. It was awesome to see. But your guys are also, they're that big dog for our 8U guys, our 9U guys. So kind of talk about that, where you guys fit on that spectrum and your thoughts, how you talk about that with your team.
yeah, so absolutely. And one thing I go back to is like when Duckworth and I split, and he went up to 10U and I stayed behind at 9. That was big brother to us. And so we practiced on the same field, and we saw each other a lot, and we would inter squad a lot. And I ain't gonna lie to you, I'm a very competitive person. anytime we were intra-squad, I was trying to beat Coach Duckworth because this is the way I'm wired. And I think our boys were wired the same way. They would scrap, claw, and fight and try to maim just to get a win. And I like that. I like when dogs bite. And so, when we saw Big Brother out there on the field, it was a competition. But the really, really cool thing I think about this is when we would get to a tournament and Duckworth's team was in our tournament and they were playing at a different time, a different field or whatever, our guys going into the stands and cheering those guys on, I tell you, I think that's recruited a lot of people for our organization because they wanted that. They wanted a team or an organization that was pulling for one another, not against one another. So I thank Coach Duckworth because he may have not known that he pushed our guys, but he pushed our guys in a different way. So with that, I felt an obligation when I moved up to 10 this year and Coach, 11s this year, and we added on Coach Burns and Coach Vogel's group. I made it a point early on to reach out to both of those guys and let them know that if I could help them in any way, whether it's the tournaments they want to, which are the right tournaments or who, what, when, where, whatever's, however I can help them. But, also extended an invitation. Hey, anytime you want to come out to a practice and hang out, you guys are more than welcome. And I'm talking coaches and players. I think as a coach, you can't be so locked in to think your world's always right. A Hall of Fame coach told me once about coaching. He's like, a good coach picks up different stuff from different coaches, a little bit from each coach, and makes them into one good ball of success. And that's so true. And with our guys, I think it's really, really critical when they're in a facility. They see the Quinn Rembrandts and they see the Boone Hermans and all those guys that are there and they're idols to them. You would think they're rock stars or something, but that's where they want to be, and they're in envy of their talents, and I hope we do the same thing for the younger good kids. And I tell our guys all the time when we're practicing, whether it's in a facility or out in a field or we're playing a tournament, you're in a fishbowl. Everybody's watching you. So be sure to be sharp and be on point.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for folks who don't know, who are listening in, this is the first time that coach's team hasn't been the youngest in the organization. We kind of had some sporadic teams here and there, a couple young ones added in some showcase. Now for the first time, we're all the way through 8 to 16. So now they've got those guys. There's 2 8U teams, there's a 9U team, there's 2 10U teams that are younger than them. So they get that opportunity to really share what they've learned, their experiences, and really help those guys. And it's been cool to see how your guys are on both ends of that spectrum and do a great job with it. So really cool stuff. Let's finish up by talking about kind of what's next for you guys. We're finally, fingers crossed, feel like we're at somewhat of a light at the end of the tunnel with this thing. People are starting to talk about tournaments and, team practices and getting out. And you guys had some big time tournaments that got postponed on. You were headed down to playing in your first perfect game tournament, some stuff in the upstate of South Carolina, but you guys still have a lot of cool things ahead. So talk our listeners through kind of what's next this summer for you guys, where you're headed, what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. We had, of course, had to rework the schedule. Hopefully we're going to kick it off Memorial Day weekend down in North Myrtle Beach at a Super NIT down there. And that tournament is absolutely loaded with talent. A lot of the big boys are there. Park Sharon, Pyro, #1 team in the nation is down there. Dirt Bags, a lot of big boys. So definitely will be a challenge for us to get down there. And the good thing about that tournament, it's going to be a really, really good set-in and dry run for us to go into Destin, where we're going in mid-June for the Global World Series down there. We're excited about going to Destin. There's, I think, 18 teams in that thing right now. Teams from Texas, Alabama, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, all over the nation. So we can't wait to see where we stack there and what we can do. We're going down to South Carolina and playing down there quite a few times in the Spartanburg area. And we got some local tournaments down here in Morganton and in Asheville that we'll keep it local. But we're going to try to wrap up hopefully by the last week in July and have tryouts. So if anybody's out there looking, we're going to have probably tryouts sometime in August. Keep an eye on our Facebook page and look for that date. And then we'll probably start up the fall season shortly thereafter in late August, early September. And we're looking forward to it. And the big thing for me really moving forward is really getting everybody ready for middle school. All of my guys will be officially in the middle school, some in their second year of middle school. So that's our big challenge. We're really watching Coach Duckworth's step that he took this year to see if that's the right path to get to the big field. And hopefully it all work out and everybody will have success at the next level.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I tell you what, man, your guys are jacked up about that trip down to Destin, Florida. I've been putting together those player spotlights for our guys and bragging on them some. And every 11 you do, their answer for what are you most looking forward to this summer was Destin, Florida. Can't wait. So that's awesome. I know your guys will be ready to get down there and compete at a high level and get after it. So, Coach, man, I can't thank you enough for coming on and joining us. Ton of good insight and information for all of our listeners. Anything that you would leave our folks with, any final word or comment?
No, if you're a coach, I can't emphasize enough the ABCA, how big that is. And like you said, the state level coach association, those are really, really good resources. Players, keep working. I know this time's really tough right now being at home. Don't lose hope. Keep fighting. Keep working. There's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. So hang in there.
Fantastic. Coach, again, thank you, man. See you soon. Good luck going forward this summer. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Coach.